It's none of my business, I know. A grown man can sleep in his own backyard, in the cold January weather, in a large custom-made cage. It's a free country. The cage has been there forever. I remember once asking my neighbor about it. Jeff eyed me up and down, stroking his gray beard, as if the answer depended on what I looked like that day. He finally mumbled that some rich folks had ordered a tiger cage a long time ago and never came around to collect it, before changing the subject abruptly. Jeff's a welder, and his backyard is full of other stuff, but nothing like that strange, shiny cage. The bars are about 3 fingers wide and have a yellow-purple glow. I can see it from my room. In fact, I made a sort of mini ritual of looking at it before going to bed. I liked the way the cage reflected the lights at night. Late one afternoon a couple of days ago, I was taking a break from my computer screen, and I just stared aimlessly outside the window. A feeling that something was wrong slowly started seeping in. Jeff was lying down inside the cage, his head supported by a pillow. A few disturbing thoughts competed in my mind about what exactly unnerved me about that image, even though I've seen it a dozen times before. I stared. His chest was moving up and down, thank God. At least he wasn't dead. Jeff was a loner, and I was the only one who actually talked with the guy, as far as I knew. Sometimes I borrowed books from him. He was a pretty smart dude, and I enjoyed our conversations as long as I could suppress the thought of him sleeping in a cage now and then. I strolled down the stairs to the living room where my parents sat watching TV. I considered telling them. What exactly? Jeff's doing it again, but this time I feel that something's wrong. What's the point? Mom will tell me not to worry, and Dad will just grunt and call Jeff a nut. And they'll both give me that look again. The look you give your 23-year-old recently unemployed son, who's still living with his parents and who's worried about some stupid shit again. So, I just walked past them, slipped on my boots, grabbed my jacket, and went outside. I peered over the fence. Jeff was now sitting near the cage door with his eyes closed, legs crossed in a lotus position. There was some food next to him. Nothing unusual. Sometimes he'd spend a few days there. There was something else I had failed to notice before, but I could barely see it clearly from this angle. A gun. On the cage floor next to the food, half covered by the blanket. One of the unsettling thoughts returned. What if he's going to kill himself? I'm ashamed to say it, but I always had a feeling that's how things were going to end for Jeff. I had decided to investigate the matter for myself, just to check on him, so I jumped over the fence. Jeff, you okay? No answer. He didn't even flinch. Jeff? The feeling that something was terribly wrong intensified. Jeff wouldn't look at me no matter what I said. It felt like he wasn't even aware that I was there. So I extended my hand through the bars. I could just barely touch his left knee. He jumped. Curiously enough, he did not open his eyes. He shook his head and his mouth moved like he was talking, but no sound came out. Weird. I can't hear you, I said. He was right there in front of me, but I couldn't hear a thing, even though it was obvious that he was shouting something. Something that felt like a warning. Then, the silence came. I swear, it was as if someone had slowly dialed all surrounding sounds down to 0. The leaves stopped rustling. The sound of cars from the street was muted. Absolute silence. I realized Jeff was repeating the same words over and over, slowly, so I could read his lips. Don't look. Don't look. Don't look. Then I finally saw it. The thing my subconscious had picked up a while ago and was screaming at me to run. There were others in the backyard with us, surrounding us. In the shiny wide bars, I saw their reflection. Tall men in bright orange vests, carrying rifles. Their skin was white as porcelain, and there were 2 pits of darkness where their eyes should be. And at the same time, to my terror, they became aware of me and aimed their rifles. I was paralyzed with fear. In that split second, I was sure that I'd die right there and then. And then the cage door opened and Jeff pulled me inside. When he closed the door, I felt like a 2-ton boulder had been lifted from my chest. I could hear him now, but the outside world was still deadly quiet. It was also quite a bit warmer in the cage. God knows why. "Matt, that you?" Jeff went with his hands through my hair. "Jesus, sit down and close your eyes. Do not look. It's important." I did as he said. With each passing moment, the fear thawed a bit. "What are they?" I asked. "Hunters," Jeff said. "They're here for me." "What? Why?" "Because I saw them. Years ago, and I've been running from them ever since. If you see the hunters, they will notice you too and start hunting you. That's how it works. This cage is the only thing that can hide me to some extent. It's special. It confuses them." Everything was still silent. I could hear my heartbeat. I could hear Jeff's wheezing breath. Why can't we hear anything outside? They suck in the sounds. The only things that can make sound are their rifles. They also can't hear us, so it's okay to talk in here. He sighed. "You have drawn some attention, so more will come. Listen, we don't have much time. They can still shoot us if they wanted. And soon, they will start shooting because they know someone's in here, and they'll hit us eventually. But they can't drag us away while we're in this cage. And they hate it if they don't collect their trophies." I sniffled. "Can't we do anything? If by some miracle one of us doesn't bleed to death after they shower us with bullets, it's still game over. The hunters will wait next to the cage as long as they can. Until the scorpions arrive, that is," Jeff said. "The scorpions? They follow the hunters. You don't want to be alive when the scorpions come, trust me. That's what the gun is for." Jeff thrust the firearm into my hands and squeezed my shoulder. "We're out of time. Don't worry. Just remember that they will come for you again. It takes them 1.5 years or so, but they'll come. When you notice that things are getting quiet, it means their hounds have sniffed you. Get in the car and drive as fast as you can, or hide in a titanium cage. If you hide on time, they won't notice you and leave. My notes, they're on my laptop. Look for them. The password is Orion1999. A few clicks pierced the silence. The ghastly rifles were cocked. "Wait, what are you doing?" I asked when I heard Jeff move. He opened the cage and vanished into the silence outside, closing the door behind him. And then, a loud blast, followed by another, and another, and another. A sharp, burnt and metallic stank stayed in the air for a few moments, and stung my nostrils. I sat there, not sure how long, too scared to move, too scared to look. Slowly, the sound started to return. The birds sang. Cars whooshed somewhere in the distance. The wind rustled the leaves. I opened my eyes and stepped out of the cage. The grass under my feet was stained with blood. I was alone in Jeff's backyard. I hadn't given the situation that I now find myself in much thought before. I never planned for it. Before today, It always seemed like something that could only happen to someone else. But here I am, homeless. Of course, I had warning signs. Deep down, I knew it would happen, but I felt that my preparation of my impending circumstance would only ensure its inevitability. It made sense to me at the time. It's getting late, and I have nowhere to sleep. For the first time in my life, I don't know what to do for shelter. Such a basic instinct that most other creatures are born with, but here I am, helpless. I've been walking for hours, but I have finally found myself in downtown. It's an old downtown that has been left to rot after the rise of the mall. The irony. It was an old abandoned record store, judging from what decals remain on the storefront window and the decor that adorned the walls inside. It was the only place that looked inviting, yet uninhabited by other people more experienced in their situation than I was. The door was unlocked, surprisingly. The shelves are almost empty, save for a few obscure records. Joe Finger's car and his ragtime band. The slip made me force a somewhat insincere chuckle. I don't know who I was trying to fool by feigning such social interactions with. Nobody. Behind the counter, there was a door that led to what seemed to be an office. There's not much in here, just a big desk and a couple of tall file cabinets. One had been knocked over and was leaning on the other, but has yet to complete a full domino effect. I found a bundle of newspapers under desk. It's too dark to try to read the date on them, but judging by how brittle they are, I'd guess they're a couple of decades old. I used one of them to dust off the desk, and several others to make some sort of blanket. The rest of the bundle served as a pillow. The desk seemed like the best place to sleep. Less of a chance of waking up to things scurrying across my body to get from one end of the room to the other. The newspapers rustle as I try to keep them all contained on top of my body, but when I am all situated and my squirming stopped, a deafening silence fell over the entire building. I closed my eyes. I don't know when it occurred to me that there was a stench. Perhaps it had always been, but only now have I become aware of it. It smelled faintly like formaldehyde and mildew. It was such a faint smell that I thought I might be able to ignore it, but that was before. A sensation fell over me, like white noise that couldn't be heard, only felt, and it could only be felt in the sense that memories are felt. I could only feel it in my mind. I've felt this before. It's the feeling of someone watching me. I open my eyes and dart them around the room. It's very dark, but it's not pitch black. Some ambient light is scattered around, from a streetlight shining through a tiny frosted window. But in the corner where the wall adjacent to that window meets the ceiling, it is pitch black. It's the only spot in the room that I can't see at all. I focus on it. It seems to be larger than it was when I first noticed it. I try to play it off, as perhaps my eyes not adjusting from glancing from the window to the corner. I close my eyes again. The stench is getting heavier. It's sickening and becoming more and more difficult to ignore. I entertain the idea of getting out and finding someplace else to sleep. I open my eyes. The black corner has grown even larger. It grows as I watch it now. It begins to make a sound. It sounds like the low reverberations of a distant foghorn or heavy metal being slowly scraped across the floor in a big empty room. The sound is quiet, yet powerful. Its rumble causes the bile to dance in my gut. Wide-eyed and terrified, I watch as limbs begin to appear from the dark corner of the room. They unfold from the blackness, to reveal that it was the blackness all along. Its limbs are long like a spider monkey's, and either hair or rotted flesh dangle from them. It braces itself in the corner as its head rises up from behind it. I can't tell if it's looking at me, but it no doubt knows I'm here. It can hear my heart beating so hard against the newspapers that it makes the sound of running on dry leaves. It slowly crawls down to the floor where I lose sight of it for just a moment before its elbows appear above the edge of the desk and pulls itself up with insect-like movements. Its head is disproportionately larger than its body and takes the form of an old man. It has only scarred, wrinkled flesh where its eyes should be, and its mouth is wide open, screaming. The sound that it has been making is the sound of its screams. It draws closer, climbing over me. Its limbs are so long, it can still reach the floor on both sides of the desk. It reaches my face, still screaming, inches away from my face. The vibration of its screams makes my insides feel like they're shifting. I feel nauseous. It stops. It stops screaming. It stops, though it isn't silent. It makes long, labored gasps of air while it stares eyeless at me. It leans in close to my ear. I have been... It takes a long, pained gasp of air before continuing. Searching for you, the creature says with a harsh, raspy whisper. I can't contain my trembling fear and I begin to cry. You have? The creature exposes jagged, rotten teeth as it grins like it's about to devour the useless, sniveling wretch that lie before it. Yes, it says. Why me? It takes another long, whining gasp of air. We've been trying to reach you about your vehicle's extended warranty. Guys, how do I tell them to take me off their list? Are you a special kind of thrill seeker? So utterly bored with reality that you dance with death just to get your kicks? If so, I have just the thing for you. This game, if you wish to call it that, is called Cracked Doors. Your average Joe wouldn't be caught dead playing this game, but you're no average Joe, are you? The rules are complicated as all hell, but I'll try my best to explain them anyways. Here are a couple ground rules you should follow before attempting to start the game. Rule number 1. The game must start and end while it's dark outside. The exact time is irrelevant, just as long as the sun isn't showing. The length of the game can range from anywhere between 1 to 3 hours, so it's best not to start right before dawn. Rule number 2. Don't play this game if you are easily frightened or suffer from any anxiety. You want to keep your wits about you at all times if you want a chance at winning. Rule number 3. It's best to play this game in a room with as few doors as possible. Playing with only 1 or 2 doors is optimal, but there are cases of people winning the game with 3 and 4 doors. Windows do not count, closets do. Rule number 4. It's best to play in your home. While you technically could play this game in an office space or some random other building, it's best to play in a place where you won't be disturbed. Rule number 5. Make sure all lights are off in your play space. The dim light of an electronic clock or some other small light source is fine, just as long as it's still dark. Rule number 6. Do not leave at any time during the game. You've blocked off all of your exits, and you'd basically be walking straight into your demise if you attempted to leave. Rule number 7. It's best if you're well rested when attempting the game. Trying to play while fighting off sleep will put you at a major disadvantage. Do not fall asleep. It's basically an automatic loss. Now that we got the ground rules out of the way, let's move on to how to start cracked doors. Once you've gotten all affairs in order, you're ready to play. To start off, you want to open all the doors in your play space slightly, just enough to fit your fingers through. You will then want to sit in the center of the room, make sure furniture is out of the way if need be, and say, "Come and get me," in a soft whisper a total of 3 times. This will summon your opponent. It's unclear what your opponent is. A ghost, a demon, a creature from another reality. Whatever it is, it's now in your presence. What you could potentially see on the other side of those doors will be replaced with dark, oppressive void. It will be completely pitch black beyond your doors. You may even smell a foul odor if you get close enough. There is a chance that your opponent will not wish to play with you. For whatever that reason may be, your doors will slam shut. Wait a few minutes and you should be safe to leave. Do not attempt the game again. It will remember you. The rules of the game are as follows. To win, you must survive until your opponent leaves. Your opponent will not leave until they have given up. You will know when the game is over, when the void on the other side of the doors is gone. Over the course of the game, your doors will slowly start to open on their own. You must try and keep these doors at their original cracked positions for as long as you can. As the game progresses, the speed at which the doors will open will increase. It is believed your opponent will get frustrated as the game elapses and will be trying harder to get you. You will find that it is impossible to close the doors completely. The entity will be keeping them open as you are both now bound by the rules of the game. Your opponent may attempt to speak with you. They may sound like an old friend or family member, begging you to open the door and enter the darkness. They may even try and offer you whatever you want. Money, good looks, fame. I shouldn't have to tell you that this is obviously a trick. Don't be a fool. If you start to hear soft singing, cover your ears and scream as loudly as you can. This should make the singing go away. The singing can drive you mad, which obviously isn't good and will definitely affect your outcome of the game. If you let one of the doors completely open, you've lost. The dark void will completely swallow your room. The floors and walls will become pitch black. You are now in the void, left to endlessly wander until you are stripped of all hope, until you are ready to be digested. If you manage to succeed, the void will lift. Your opponent has left. You should be safe to leave the room, but as a precaution, you should wait a few minutes. Once the coast is clear, you're fine to do whatever you wish without the threat of letting the void in. Congratulations, you survived the horrors of the night. I hope it was worth it. You now have the bragging rights to claim that you have won a game against some horrific entity. Just be warned that it knows who you are. Attempting the game again could show arrogance and anger the entity. The more you play with fire, the more likely